In this video, I'm going to give you the exact blueprint that we've used to launch over 100 products over the last few years. This strategy is specifically for those who want to aggressively dominate their subcategory. So if that sounds like you, then continue watching this video. So I'm going to break it out into 3 different phases. And now I'll share with you a presentation that I've created that walks you through each step of the process. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. So as I explained, there are 3 stages of a successful launch. And I do want to give a quick disclaimer. The time between each phase can vary depending on your subcategory. So for example, if you have a much faster moving subcategory, then you may want to move in between phases a lot quicker. So this is just a general guideline to follow and not a hard rule. So use your own discretion, but use this as a framework to identify what phase you're in and what actions you should be taking. So month 1 is the most aggressive phase in the whole process. Month 2 focuses more on how you can grow and expand. And then month 4 onwards is just really transitioning from the launch phase into a more established phase and really just integrating those campaigns with some of your older, more established campaigns targeting more established products. Phase 1 is really the most aggressive phase. Some people refer to this as the honeymoon period. And essentially what we want to do here is send as many positive signals to Amazon as possible, because we really want to let them know that our product is relevant. It's a product that a lot of shoppers will like. And if Amazon truly believes that, they're going to show and expose your product to more shoppers. So the way that we do that, the way that we interact with Amazon's algorithm and let them know that it's important or relevant, through very targeted and aggressive PPC. So I'm really going to segment phase 1 into 2 subcategories. So we've got phase 1A, where you really want to focus on indexing all of your most relevant keywords. And typically this is going to last between 7 and 10 days. It may even be shorter, depending on your subcategory. Then the second phase, phase 1B, really focuses on ranking. So you really want to start getting organic ranks on some of your most relevant keywords. And again, this will probably last you around 21 days, so the remainder of the first month. So for each phase, what I'm going to do is break it into 3 different things. So we've got goals, focus metrics, and actions. So the goal of phase 1A really is, firstly, you want to confirm indexing. So you want to make sure that all of the keywords that you're targeting are actually being indexed. And that's why it's super important to make sure you're only really going after the most relevant keywords at this point, because Amazon has no idea what your product is. So you want to make sure that you're feeding it with all the most relevant data. And the way that we do that is through including the most relevant keywords in your listing. So the title, bullet points, description, backend, images, alt text, all of that good stuff. And then also running paid advertising campaigns targeting those keywords in exact match. And we'll cover that in the action section. So as well as confirming indexing, and we can do that through many different softwares, for example, Helium 10, Jungle Scout, and I'm sure there are a bunch of others out there as well. We also want to make sure we are generating clicks, add to carts, and conversions. Now, add to carts is a little trickier to monitor, but you want to have a finger on the pulse of your PPC campaigns and make sure that you're tracking your clicks and conversions every single day. And you really want to be hitting your target budget. So if you have a budget in mind, let's say, for example, you are going to spend $100 per day. You want to make sure that you're spending that full amount. As I've already explained, this phase here is the most aggressive. So you really want to be pushing the limits with your targeting here and really just going after the most relevant keywords. So the metrics that you want to focus on during this phase really are impressions, clicks, and orders. So you want to make sure that you're generating as many impressions as possible, specifically top of search impression share. This is going to be a super useful metric. You obviously want to be tracking your clicks and ultimately your orders as well. All of these are going to be positive signals that you're sending to Amazon. So if you have higher than average impression share percentage and you have a good amount of clicks, you're going to be letting Amazon know that this is a relevant product and they should be showing your product to more shoppers. You also want to be tracking your ad placements, because during this phase, you really want to be showing at the top of the page. This is going to help with clicks, conversions, etc. And you may have to pay to get there. It may be expensive, but it's worth it during this phase. And then of course you want to make sure that all of your keywords during this phase are indexed. So any keyword that's relevant to your product, it needs to be indexed within this first 7 to 10 days. If it's not, you need to identify why it's not. It may be an issue where the keyword isn't included in your listing. Or if it is, maybe you need to push it to a more important part of the listing. Or you may review the keyword and actually be like, it's probably not as relevant as I once thought it was. And in that case, you would remove it from your targeting. So actions for this phase include, the first thing that you want to look at is make sure that you're targeting hyper relevant keywords, and you only want to be targeting these in exact match. So I learned this from a guy called Anthony Gwen, and he talks about a relevancy web. So essentially the way this works is, especially during the launch phase, we are feeding Amazon data as to what our product is, and it will start to create a web of relevancy based on all of the keywords we're targeting and the keywords that are in our listing. So for example, if I'm selling a footrest and I target footrest cushion, black footrest cushion, ergonomic footrest cushion, as we start to target these through paid advertising and generate sales and clicks, it's going to start linking those keywords together and understanding, okay, this is what the product is, and starting to build a picture of what it is and understanding what types of keywords will be relevant. And then that's really going to start to help with your indexing and with your organic ranks as well. A way that you can supercharge this is segmenting your campaigns by root keyword. So for example, one root keyword may be footrest cushion, and in that case, we'd make sure that any keyword that has footrest cushion in it is included in one campaign. Then another one may be ergonomic footrest, footrest for under desk, or footrest for office. These are just a few examples of root keywords that you can use. And if you can segment by root keyword, that's really going to help with building out this relevancy web and indexing an organic rank. So you also want to target your direct competitors. Now, you don't necessarily only need to target the competitors that you think you have a competitive edge over. The reason that we do this is because you can almost piggyback off those competitors' indexing and ranks. So like I say, this phase is really about feeding as much data to Amazon as possible as to what your product is, so they can build a picture of what your product actually is and what kind of keywords and what product targets are relevant. So if you have a bunch of competitors that are ranked and indexed on a bunch of different keywords that you would like to be ranked on, then it makes sense for you to target those competitors, because you can piggyback off their ranks and accelerate your indexing. You also want to be using top of search placement modifiers at this point. So I generally go pretty aggressive here. I want to make sure that I'm capturing a large share of the top of search impression share percent. So you want to be pretty aggressive with your modifiers here. And then the final action really is to be monitoring your indexing and ad placement. Remember, you want to be shown at the top of page for ad placement. And during this phase, you want to make sure that all of your relevant keywords have been indexed. So these are the things that you want to focus on during phase 1A. Now moving into phase 1B, this typically lasts anywhere around 21 days. So usually the remainder of that rolling 30-day period from launch. Now in terms of the goals that we set to achieve during this phase, firstly, we want to make sure that we're driving as many clicks, add to carts and orders as possible. So we really want to go aggressive with the top of search again and making sure we have high bids. Remember, this phase isn't meant to be profitable. We go into this phase knowing that we're going to make a loss, but it's going to set the foundations so that we can have really solid organic ranks for a bunch of different keywords, which will generate a lot more profit down the line. So during this phase, you also want to make sure that your most relevant keywords, you are starting to achieve an organic rank. Now, generally, we try and aim to get on page 1 during this phase. It may be a little more difficult for more generic keywords, but generally during this phase, you don't really want to be targeting the more generic keywords. You want to be targeting hyper relevant keywords. So this should be achievable. Another goal that we set to achieve, and again, this really just depends on subcategory, but we want to try and get to the 10 review range. We found that once we get to 10 reviews and above, our conversion rate starts to increase and climb from there onwards. So we really want to do everything that we can to get to that first 10 reviews. Now, it may be difficult if you have a low review rate or if you're in a slower moving subcategory, but those 10 first reviews are crucial for conversion rate. And then again, we want to continue to hit our target budget. We don't want to be underspending at this point. Remember, this is a very aggressive phase. So the metrics that we focus on to help us achieve those goals include impressions, clicks, and orders again. Reviews, of course, because we want to get to that 10 review count. We want to be checking at this point our organic and ad placement. So again, you can use a tool like Helium 10 or Jungle Scout or something like that to track these. And then conversion rate and ACOS as well does play a part. So ACOS, we want to make sure we still have some type of ACOS limit, although you may have a very, very high target ACOS. For example, with some of the accounts that we work with, sometimes we'll set a target ACOS of like 300%. But the point is we still do have a limit set because we don't want to just completely hemorrhage money, and it may be better spent on other keywords. So the actions that we really take during these 21 days is at this point, we will start to launch some broad modified campaigns and phrase match campaigns. And generally what we'll do here is identify the keywords within our exact match campaigns that have good performance. So good performance metrics, meaning they have a relatively good ACOS, they're generating orders, and we're starting to get some organic rank now. We're going to build out on those campaigns by creating some phrase match and broad modified campaigns. We also now want to launch an auto close match campaign, and we're also looking to monitor and just eliminate any wasted spend. So we will set spend limits. It will generally be a lot higher than our usual spend limit. So it is important to bear that in mind. But at this point, it is worth turning things off if they are just hemorrhaging money. And then we're constantly, every single day, monitoring our organic placements and our ad placements as well, because we want to start climbing the organic rank now, because we really want to start improving and increasing our organic rank at this point. So for example, we'll use Helium 10 and we'll boost all of the keywords so we can really see how it's performing on an hourly basis. And that pretty much summarizes phase 1B. So this is the most aggressive phase. Now going into phase 2, we do take our foot off the gas a little bit, so to speak. Now this generally lasts around 2 months. So you're looking at month 2 and 3 of the launch. It may be a little bit longer. It really depends on your category. Now, in the next slide, I'll show you what you can sort of use as a health check or a pulse check to see whether or not you should transition into a more established strategy, meaning having much lower target ACOS and much lower spend limits. So the goals for phase 2 really are, again, we want to be driving clicks, impressions, orders, add to carts. We do want to keep spend high just so we can maximize our exposure, because this is really the phase where we are drilling down on the keywords that we know we can rank for and using paid advertising as a tool to accelerate that organic growth. So there really is a push to improve our organic ranks on the most important keywords here. We really want to be getting into the top 10, ideally top 4 organic placements during this phase. So the metrics that we really focus on to achieve these goals are, of course, impressions, clicks and orders, super important because again, we're maximizing exposure during this phase. We want to be monitoring our reviews. Our organic and ad placements, again, is a no-brainer because this is really about how we can maximize our organic exposure. And conversion rate really does play a bigger role during this phase because we do want to see our conversion rate continue to climb. And if not, we need to identify why it isn't improving. Have we not generated as many reviews as we'd like? Is our product too expensive? Is it something to do with our offer? Are our images not optimized? And we can start to look at all this and really diagnose why we're not achieving the conversion rate that we set out to achieve, really. And then the final metric that we like to monitor is our total ACOS. So how is our advertising influencing our profit? Now at this point, you may not even be making a profit. It depends on your strategy, really. Some people don't mind breaking even during this phase because they know that it's a long-term game. And this first 3 months are really going to help set the foundations for the next 3 or more years. So total ACOS is something that you want to be tracking during this phase. Now, in terms of actions, again, we're going to be maximizing exposure. So we want to create phrase match, broad modified, but we will take a more refined approach and we will start to add negative keywords in proactively. So if we can see that specific search terms or keywords just don't perform for this product, we're going to add those in as phrase negatives or exact negatives. We also want to enable the other match types in auto campaign. Now there's 2 ways that you can do this, and I actually don't mind doing either. You can either just enable the match types within the existing campaign, or you can segment them into separate auto campaigns. If I'm being completely honest, I generally side with enabling them in the existing campaign. I've not found any meaningful difference in segmenting match types within an auto campaign, if I'm being honest. So that's my 2 cents on that. You can also look at creating sponsored brands and sponsored display campaigns at this point, but I would emphasize that you probably want to make sure you're being profitable on these campaign types, as what we've found is generally sponsored brands and display doesn't index. So it needs to be generating a profit if you're going to be running these types of ads. You're going to want to set spend limits as well during this phase. Now, it may not be as low as the more established campaigns and products that you have, but you still want to have a spend limit in place. And if a keyword exceeds that spend limit, you want to cut it. And then the final thing that you're going to be doing is monitoring your organic ranks and placements. Again, during this phase, your organic rank should be climbing. You want to be getting into the top 10, if not top 4 placements. So if you're not, you need to identify why that's not happening. Which leads us into the third and final phase. And the duration of this lasts for forever and after. And that is a little bit of tongue in cheek, but really, once you've gone past the launch phase, meaning phase 1A, B, and 2, if you've done it correctly, if you've followed all of this, there's a good chance you will have had a successful launch. Obviously, that is assuming that you have a really good product and you have some sort of differentiating factor or some type of moat. But considering all of these things, you should now be looking to transition into the profit phase. So at this point, it should be an established product, which means it's no longer in launch mode. So you don't want to be as aggressive. You're probably going to start setting a target ACOS that's very similar to your account level target ACOS and spend limit that are very similar to your spend limits with more established products. So how will you actually know when you're there? In my opinion, you'll know when you're there when your offer and reviews are no longer a constraint on your conversion rate. So what that means is your conversion rate now either at market average or above market average? And if it is, then you can sort of take your foot off the gas a little bit here because you know that you're converting at the same rate as your competitors. Now, ideally, you want to be converting at a higher rate than those. That's the ideal. But once you get to this point, you can take your foot off the gas a little bit if you wish. So how do you actually transition? So during the transition phase, you're just going to treat these new campaigns like your more established older campaigns that are targeting older products. So you're going to have clear ACOS limits that you set. And if you have keywords that exceed that, you're going to do bid management to make sure you get to that target ACOS. You're also going to have a spend limit on keywords and product targets that are generating spend without conversions. Now, this spend limit is going to be a lot lower than the spend limits that you set during the launch phase. And then you also want to make sure that you set a sustainable budget. There's a good chance during the launch phase you would have spent a lot on advertising. So now you need to look at what can you actually spend sustainably month over month. Set a budget based on that. So that's the process that we follow. As I say, we've used this to launch over 100 products with some of our partners and it's been very successful. It does also assume that you have a good product. So make sure you've got a good product and a good listing and a good offer before you do an aggressive launch like this. But if you do have all of those things in place, then it really is a blueprint for dominating your subcategory. So to summarize, there are 3 phases. I guess you could call it 4 if we break the honeymoon up into the 2 sub phases. So we've got the index phase, which generally is going to last you about 7 to 10 days. We've got the rank phase, which is probably going to last you around 21 days. The expand phase, which is generally going to last you around 2 months, maybe a little bit more. And then you really move into a more established phase. So that's everything for the video. And I hope you use this blueprint to successfully launch many products on Amazon. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how we help sellers sell more products on Amazon, click the link below. Okay, thanks.